pretty even, looking pretty good. Let's bring it in a little bit. Someday I will have the I'll have the money of Ricardo Lino, and I'll have a dedicated studio. Wouldn't that be great? Well, here we are. So this is the 6th episode of Gear Talk. Super excited to be here. The responses to the last few episodes has been great. Again, this is, was a thing that I just started because I wanted to talk a little bit about skating and about gear, and didn't really have an outlet for that. And I'm really fortunate that everybody's appreciated it and liked it. So your comments and questions really, drive this show. So thank you. If there's anything that I can answer, please, if you're watching live, get into the comments. I will be taking time out to read the comments and answer some questions. Thankfully, unfortunately, my wife is sick, but that means that I put the dogs to bed early, so there won't be any barking this time, so I won't get distracted. So I might be able to go a little long today. If you've got questions, please put them in the comments. Definitely want to get to them. Okay, so first order of business. So last month I got myself a pair of Vehm Skates, and the first question out of everybody's mind is, well, how good are they, right? Are they your favorite skates? Are they the best skates that you've found? And they're really good. So I've been skating them for about a month now. I've put up videos of my skating. I've skated them flat. I've skated them anti-rocker. I've skated them with big wheels, and they're really good. My favorite skates for aggressive are the USD Aeon, the 60 millimeter USD Aeon. These ones. So I have these set up, with just generic Valo wheels, nothing crazy. They are a size 910. They are a 60 millimeter Aeon. They have a MyFit Skinny Boy liner. I swapped out the insoles for, what's in here? I don't know what I swapped it out with. Some gel, maybe the Go Project gel insoles. They're great skates. Absolutely great skates. But the question is, are these better than the Vehm Skates? Here's the Vehm Skates. So these are the Vehm Skates. These are the 908s, the ones that I've been skating for the last few weeks. They are UFS, fairly stock. I swapped on some 50-50 balance frames. I'm riding some dead champagne wheels with juice blocks. 50-50 bearings coming soon. They're very nice. But stock liner, I replaced the insole. Otherwise, it's a fairly standard plastic shell 908 boot. And they skate great. I have not skated this good in my life. Like, I feel like I'm confident. I feel like this Royale groove is so good. The small notch makes a huge difference in the way that you do Royales. You don't have to get as low. You can put more pressure on this sole plate and not have the fear of slipping out because you're going too low. That was my problem with those Rollerblade New Jacks. I was going so low and I kept slipping out. With these, I have no fear. I can jump on down ledges. I can jump on ledges fast first try, and I don't have any issues. So these are great skates. But where do they match compared to the Aeons? Well, I think for a UFS boot, these are by far my favorite UFS aggressive skates. The price point is amazing. $165 is an incredible price for a boot only. It doesn't have anything you don't need. So it doesn't have the carbon. It doesn't have the what do they call them? The skins, like a Romana Brate or a USD carbon. It is bare bones plastic shell with a sole plate, and it's $165. And that is a hard price to beat. If money were no object, I still really like these skates. The responsiveness is second to none. What I love most about the Aeon is the feeling that you're just skating with wheels on your feet. And that is a very similar feeling that I get with my Seba CJs, which are these ones that I'm riding now with Wizard frames. These are monster boots. Carbon bottom. It's got the built-in insole liner thing. It's got the 45-degree strap. These are incredible skates, but they're not my favorite for aggressive. I think the carbon is great, but the carbon, you have to bend down really low. You don't get much of a flex when you're riding carbon boots. So when you're doing topside tricks, and I'm not very good at topside tricks, so for some of us who are better at topside tricks, you probably don't have this problem. But I'm not very good at topside tricks, and I need all the help that I can get. With a carbon boot, you've really got to get low, and you got to put most of your weight on your knees and not on your ankles and twisting a little bit. I still do that. I'm going to get better, but unless you can do that, I think this is going to be a difficult skate to ride aggressive. It is great for big wheels, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. It is great for big wheels, but it is not the great aggressive boot. So the Vehm, I mean, it's a really hard skate to beat. Now, granted, I haven't skated the K2s yet. I haven't skated the USD Carbons yet. There are a few other skates that I haven't tried yet. But for a UFS boot, I've got to say this is probably my favorite UFS boot. The mix of the stability, the responsiveness, this sole plate, I get the same feeling as I got with my USD Aeon, where it felt like the wheels were just attached to my feet. There's no wiggle. You know, I get a little bit of wiggle with a Razor Shift. Just because of the way that that IFC system mounts to the boot, there's a little bit of play. There's nothing here. You know, you've got these 2, 4, 6, 8 bolts that go into the boot. That's pretty solid, and that's a really great feeling. But, there is a but. You're still limited by UFS. So, I love skating juice blocks, and full disclosure, I own the company, so it's no joke that I love skating them. I brought the company back because I wanted to skate them. I love skating juice blocks, but if I were skating flat, the USD Aeon is a much better skate. Now, you could definitely put on a wish frame, and a wish frame is an amazing setup. The wish frame, I honestly don't have one here right now, but the wish frame, you know, you ride 60 millimeter in the middle, 72s on the outside. The 60s are pushed all the way out. It's kind of like a juice block setup where you've got this really nice groove in this grinding area, but the frame is longer and it gives you a slight rocker, which means that when you're riding, these 60 millimeter wheels that end up right here, they're what touches the most, and they're what you get when you're doing your turns and stuff. It is a great setup, and it is a great frame. I haven't skated the wish frame on these skates yet, but I don't know that that's enough. I feel that for straight up aggressive, if all you wanted to do was go to a skate park and do everything at the skate park, you'd be hard pressed to beat the USD Aeon 60. Just looking at this skate, you can see why. This split, because they don't have to worry about UFS. So the UFS standard is how we mount frames to boots. I have a boot here. This is the old Valo V13. And you can see on the bottom, there's these two little nibbins. These are M6 bolts. They are 167 millimeters from front to back. And these are what mount frames onto your boots. If you had a frame like this blank frame, you could see that the nubbins on the inside, the receptors, are 167 millimeters from front to back. You can put any UFS frame on any UFS boot within reason and mount the frame bolts, same frame bolts, and you're good to go. That is an incredible flexibility. You can ride big wheels like those Wizards. You can ride little wheels. You can ride 3-wheel, tri-skates. like the Kaiser Trimax. That is a great flexibility. But because of it, because of these mounting points, you can't make a frame like this. This is a very unique frame. And I feel personally as though this frame is what I want. A flat 60 frame with the widest split, wheel bite protection. I feel like the USD Aeon for me is still probably the best aggressive skate there is. Out of the box, you don't have to worry about buying frames. You don't have to worry about anything. It just does everything that you want right out of the box. If somebody were getting into aggressive right now and said, you know what, I used to skate, I want to skate again, what would you recommend? I would recommend the USD Aeon. I think it's the easiest skate to get out of the box, and it's by far the best frame that you can get for aggressive skating. Now, the catch is, and this is kind of wishy-washy, and I don't plan on sitting on the fence here, but the catch is if you want a little bit of flexibility. So if all you're doing is looking for an aggressive boot, USD Aeon, my choice. I think the USD Aeon 60 is the best aggressive skate. If you wanted a more all-around skate, if you planned on doing some urban, if you planned on doing grinds and skate park and big wheels, then it's got to be the Vehm. I think this is the best skate. I skated them with the big Trimax. They felt great. They didn't feel as good as my Seba, and I didn't expect them to. They're not a carbon boot. They don't have the 45-degree strap. But something about this lacing system, about the stiffness of this plastic shell, really makes it feel comfortable and solid on my feet. I don't mind having a bigger wheel. And I had a problem back with, where was it? Oh, it was with the Rollerblade New Jacks, where I was a little worried about the height and the Razor Shift when I was trying the IFC system with the ground control 3 wheels. You feel like, that wheelbase is too high and you start moving around. I didn't have as much of a problem on this. Now, it wasn't as good as if I were skating a dedicated tri-skate. It wasn't as good as my Seba, but it was really good. So my verdict, if you are planning on getting just an aggressive skate and all you want to do is skate ledges and skate park, get yourself a pair of USD Aeon 60s. If you want to have a little bit more flexibility, if you want to skate big wheels, anything other than just a skate park and ledges, then you should get yourself a pair of them 908s. All right, anybody disagree with that? I'd love to hear it in the comments. I think that's, after skating them for a little bit, I think that's a pretty good argument. But I would love to hear what you guys think. No wizards on 908s. That's a bad idea. Hey, Aaron. Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I'd be curious what frames you have on your 908s, but I really like the 908s. Again, I think they're an amazing aggressive skate. I think if we were talking about if you had to buy one skate, I would probably get the Aeon. I think it's a toss-up, though. I think the big differentiator for me is if you like skating flat, and I do, and if you want to skate anything other than aggressive. And if you do, then you should probably get the Vehm so that you can swap out, even with some 80 mil wheels or some wish frames, you can skate a little faster. But yeah, grind-wise, the Vehms are great. I feel like I'm grinding better on the Vehms than the Aeon 60s. But I haven't skated the Aeon 60s in a bit, so either way. Yes, the sizing chart is weird. So these Vehm, so I am also a 10.5. I would recommend the medium. The problem with the medium and the liner is that the liner doesn't have much stretch in the toes. So if you've got a true 10.5 foot, you're fine. If you've got an 11, you might be a little tight for these liners. Now, the liner has a little bit of, sorry, the shell has a little bit of wiggle room, so you could get a smaller liner and put it in there. I've seen people put second skins in there and they work fine. Guaranteed, if you put an Intuition in, works fine. You typically want to get the smallest shell that you can fit your foot in and then find a liner that will work. I'm very lucky that I was able to fit my foot into the stock medium liner. But yeah, a 10.5 is right at the edge, so it might not fit you. Yes, John. I gotta try Switch Royales. You're absolutely right. I'm a huge I'm a huge fan of this Royale. It's a really great feeling. Agreed with the UFS. I mean, I think Mr. Self-Destruct. I think you're right, and I think the question is, you know, do you already have frames that you like? If you're coming in new, what's it worth to you? Obviously, I'm a big proponent of UFS, but if I'm recommending a skate for somebody who just wants to skate aggressive, it's really hard to beat the Aeon. I think it's a really great skate, especially if you're skating it flat. I've seen people skate it anti-rocker, and it's fine. I think it's pretty flexible. Of course, the problem is that it's not UFS. So if you want to skate at big wheels, if you want to skate big wheels, you'd have a problem. But realistically, if all you're doing is skating aggressive and you have a dedicated aggressive skate, it's I think the Aeon is the choice. I agree with you on the design, JFOMO. I think that you know, John did what he could with what he had, and I think he's going to do better in the future. I think they look fine. I'm not much of an aesthetics sort of person. I'm more of a functional sort of person. I know they skate really well. Um, you know, to each their own. If you like the look, if you don't like the look, fine. I think that the next ones are going to be better, and then the next ones, and then the next ones. 50/50 spacers are shipping this week. We just got them in 2 nights ago, so we're in good shape. I got plenty of them, so if you need them, there's a link on the 50/50 Instagram to get some. Thank you for reminding me. um, how long should the Aeon frames and boots last? I mean, a long time. So long as you keep your wheels in. Um, I don't see them wearing through. And even if you do, they're $100 to replace. So I mean, a pair of frames is going to cost you what, 60, 70 or so. Um, Aeon shells are a little bit more, of course, because it's a sole plate as well as a Royale as well as the frame. But $100 isn't too bad to replace. All right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Wizards. A couple of just insights that I had that I didn't mention. I got a pair of Wizards a couple months ago, actually. My friend Al Delega sent them to me. There's a loaner set that that Leon put together because, you know, they're expensive frames, and he put this loaner set together that he's been sending around to different spots in the country. I think in the country, just in the U.S. So that people could try them out and, you know, give their feedback and potentially buy them or at least skate them and, you know, share with people what they think. So here they are. So these are the NR100 Wizard frames. These are a flat 100. They are 4x100. So these are 100 millimeter mushroom blading undercover wheels. I have them on with 50/50 bearings. The frames themselves are UFS, so they'll fit on any UFS boot. They will perform best with a carbon boot, like the Seba. The reason is that they want as much responsiveness as possible. You know, this is a fairly tall ride height. In fact, it's not as low as it can be. Maybe it is. Maybe it's got that little rocker going on. It requires a slightly tall ride height, and as a result, putting them straight to the carbon is the way to go. I have my sole plates here. Here. So these are the sole plates that come with the Seba CJ that I really liked for sole grinds and royales. I had to take these off in order to put on the wizard frames, and the reason is that I want as little distance as possible between the bottom of the boot and the wizard frame, and that gives me more responsiveness. From my perspective, I haven't really skated these enough to have a good opinion on them. My first impression video is up, and it was a pretty good ride. I think that they feel smooth, really smooth. The 4x100 is an amazing feeling. And I actually had that feeling with K2 R100s before. Let me see if I can find those. So these are the K2 R100s. These things are what some people call the poor man's wizards. So these are also 4x100. They are UFS. And interestingly, the R100 has 2 UFS mounts. So you can move them forward or backwards depending on where you want to mount them. I didn't experiment very much with this. I'm not really sure what that's for. Personally, I like it when my wheels are perfectly centered under my foot and the line of the wheel is perfectly in line with my foot. That is, where was it? I think the first mount for these frames. And it felt great. These skated fine. I didn't have any issues with these aside from the length. They're about the same. They're about the same as the Wizards, a little bit longer, but you can see they're long. So if you look at the toe, this is where, like, if you were skating so this is that Rollerblade UFS aggressive frame. You can see where this mounts. It's a lot longer. So this is the Rollerblade UFS frame that I would be using. They're much longer than this. And the problem is, when you're skating and you're doing crossovers and stuff, if you're, look at the other one. If you're skating, and you cross over, you have a tendency of rubbing your toes together. And that is scary. So especially if you're skating fast, if you clip your toes, it's a problem. The shorter the wheelbase, the better for me, but there's a limit. So I like a wheel that goes flush with my toe. These are too long for me. The way that I skate them, though, has to change. So I've noticed with the Wizard frames, doing crossovers and things, if you watch, Sean Unwin or Leon, they don't do a lot of crossovers. They do a lot of feet on the ground, kind of flowy sort of stuff. That's what I need to learn. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on the next month or so. I think that the Wizard concept is really sound. I love doing slides. I love coasting with them, almost like skiing. But I'm not a huge fan of skating them as an urban skate. It is something different. And I don't quite know what that different is yet. I'm going to continue skating them and experimenting and posting videos and seeing what I can do with these frames. I'm not a big footwork guy. I'm also not a big go large at the skate park guy like Joey or Todd is. I'm not sure what I'm going to end up doing with these. And I think that's the review. If it comes to a point where I can't figure out what I can do with these frames, that's a pretty good conclusion that they're very niche. And maybe they're great for some people, but they're not great for everyone. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying them. I'm going to do all of the lions and the gazelles and things like that, all the different footwork tricks. And let's see how they are. The NR90, yeah, Derek, I think that's a good call. I went with the sizing that Leon recommended, and these were the frames that Al had, so he sent them over. He recommends doing the NR100 for a size 10 and up, I think. So maybe I can do the NR90s. I don't have a problem with that, but we'll see. A couple other things. I'm going to go through some of the questions. Let me get a towel real quick. I'm sweating. Tell you what, we had a break in the weather this week. It was normal, and we had a lot of rain over the weekend, so it kept me from skating, which was unfortunate. But it is so hot. I mean, my garage is just a nightmare. I really need to get a studio or something like that, but um, it's still just a fun project. So apologies if I have to take a break and wipe some sweat from my face. Let me go through some of the questions. Infinity Ripper asks if a flat setup is that much of a difference. That's actually a really good question. Let me talk a little bit about that. So when I started skating, I skated flat, and the skates that I started with were these Lightning TRS. Now these weren't the actual ones that I had. These were ones that I found at a Play It Again Sports maybe 10 years ago. But these were the first skates that I had. Lightning TRS, they come with flat 72 millimeter wheels, and they're pretty laughable now. But this was, the early 90s when these first came out. They served me well, and I skated these everywhere. And I would go downstairs and I would jump over things and I would play roller hockey, and that was like what everybody did. Then we watched The Hoax or Dare to Air. It was The Hoax that I think that we watched first. And we got our first copy of Daily Bread magazine and Box magazine. So we saw what other people were doing on skates, and they were grinding. So they had, in the middle, they had smaller wheels. And we didn't know where to get smaller wheels. They didn't really have a industry then, and clearly this was before online shopping and Amazon and such. So they would put little wheels in there, and they would file down the inside so that there was a groove. And that's how we started skating anti-rocker. So two real major setups for aggressive skating. Flat. Let me find a couple frames. So let me. I actually have a fitty frame set up with flat. Hold on. Here it is. All right. So this is a 50-50 balance frame with flat 56 millimeter wheels. So this is a flat setup. All four wheels are touching the ground at the same time. What's nice about this is you get mobility. When you're skating with all four wheels touching, the contact points when you're doing turns and such is between two wheels at a time. So you've always got at least two wheels touching when you're doing turns, when you're doing carves, when you're doing anything. That makes skating a lot more fun. So you're able to weave in and out of things. You're able to skate faster, and when you're going over cracks and bumps, it's this little instead of a boom boom that you would get with just a single anti-rocker setup. So it's a much smoother ride if you're riding flat. It is a much more fun ride. You can do carves and such. When you're doing gaps, you've got four wheels instead of two wheels to absorb the shock. So it's a lot more cushiony ride. The other option is anti-rocker. So this is a 50-50 frame set up anti-rocker with juice blocks. Some people would call this freestyle. I don't know that there's much of a difference in the ride. The point of anti-rocker is that you've only got the first and the last wheel. And a freestyle frame and anti-rocker frame, for me, it doesn't really matter. The ride is going to be the same. The distance between the wheels, the contact point, is from 1 to 4. In this case, it's 250 millimeters from wheel 1 to wheel 4. And that is a long way. If you were skating a flat frame, you would have wheels, 1, 2, 3, 4 wheels. So when you're skating over a bump, it just tick, 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 just little hits. And it doesn't absorb the shock. It doesn't hurt as much. You don't feel it as much. When you're skating anti-rocker, it is a single wheel that goes over and is boom, and it just hits, and it's not fun. When you're turning, it's harder to turn because the wheels that touch are from 1 to 4. So you don't have these two wheels in the middle or on the front or on the back that are turning. So when you're carving, you can't carve as quickly with an anti-rocker setup as you can with a flat setup. I get around that by riding a smaller frame. So I cheat a little bit. Technically, I should be riding a large frame. I have a size 10 foot, and a 270 millimeter frame is probably where I should be for a setup. I prefer the shorter frame when I'm riding anti-rocker, and the reason is I want a shorter distance between 1 and 4 so that I can turn a little quicker. Now, why would anybody skate anti-rocker, right? Well, there's a few advantages, and personally, this is my preferred way to skate aggressive if I'm not skating the USD Aeons. We'll get to that in a second. So, anti-rocker is great for grinding. It's obvious, right? So you've got this big space in the middle where you can jump on the ledge. So when you're grinding a ledge, when you're grinding a rail, when you're grinding coping, you can just jump on, and this is fast. So either you've got juice blocks, which are made of the same material as the frame, or you've got an anti-rocker wheel, which so this is an anti-rocker wheel. It's 47 millimeters, I think. And this would go in the middle. And rather than putting wheels in there or juice blocks in there, you put a little anti-rocker wheel. The benefit of the anti-rocker is that it is a wheel. So if you go over a little incline or something, if your middle rubs, these wheels will roll and then you won't scrape. I haven't had much of a problem with that personally on the juice blocks, but I can see people complaining about that. Anti-rocker is the way that people started doing it, is the traditional way to skate and do grinds and ledges. It is great. I prefer juice blocks, but anti-rocker wheels work just as well. The thing about the anti-rocker wheels is they're so small, they're not going to touch when you're skating. So you don't get the added benefit of having wheels down if you're doing carves or turns or anything. They're not gonna roll. So when you're skating anti-rocker, you've got that long wheelbase, and you have to really force yourself to turn, versus a flat, where you've got all the wheels and you can turn and skate. The negative to flat is that you don't have that grind space. So if you were jumping on a ledge, you've got to be really low so that all you're doing is grinding on the frame and the boot. You don't want to grind on the wheels. Even if you're riding hard wheels, they're still going to stick in what they call wheel bite, which is when you jump onto a ledge or something and it hits your wheel and you just stop. That's not a good feeling, and it happens to me a lot when I skate flat. It is unfortunate. Smaller wheels will help if you got some 56 millimeter wheels, 55 millimeter wheels, but wheel bite is one of the negatives to riding flat. The alternative to riding flat with this is with a USD Aeon. So this is also a flat frame. This is riding flat, and as you see when you're skating, you've got 4 wheels touching, but the distance between these 2 wheels, the middle wheels, it's so wide that you still have a very big groove area protected, so that when you do grinds, you don't get any wheel bite. And you still get the same feeling. So if you're skating and you turn, you can see that the wheels will still touch. You'll still get a good the flat feeling. I love skating flat. I love being able to turn and skate. Skating flat is a more enjoyable feeling. But typically you don't have the ability to grind, and the USD Aeon fixes that problem. So In a nutshell, if you're doing grinds and if you're skating ledges and skating isn't as big of a focus, the actual skating part of the activity, get some anti-rocker set up. That's the way to go. If you want to skate, if you want to do transitions, if you want to do big airs, if you want to do bowls or any sort of carving, or if you want to skate, like skate from a point to a point, get yourself a flat setup. I think you're going to have a much better time. All right. Let's see. I feel you, Infinity. It is an expensive skate. I think if you can find somebody who has a pair and try theirs, the Aeons are great. You can take my word for it, but obviously, it's your money. If you spent your money on a pair of skates, you want them to be good. All right. Okay, Kathy had a good question. The height difference between a 125 and a 100. So big wheels came in probably 10 years ago, maybe. I think Powerslide was the company that was pushing big wheels. Back in the day, speed skaters used to ride 80s, and that was the biggest wheel. In the 90s, maybe for solemn people, they would ride 90s or so, or 84s. Those were kind of the bigger wheels that you would get. I'm not sure if Powerslide was the first company to come out with big wheels, but they definitely were the company that pushed them the hardest. So these are the big wheels. So this is a Rollerblade Hydrogen 100 millimeter wheel. It is, a similar setup to what an aggressive wheel would be. Do I have an 80? I don't think I have an 80. Here's a 72. So this is a 72, which is probably what the base inline skate wheel has always been. And then this is 100. You can tell there's a slight difference. So with a 72, you've got almost the same amount of urethane. So this white area is actually a really good descriptor. The white area is the urethane that you tread on, and then the black area or the green area, here's the core. You can see the core is just a very different design on the hundreds. It's still the same amount of urethane, it's not that much difference. So the amount of wear is going to be about the same. Now, why would you want a 100 millimeter wheel? Well, there's a lot of reasons. The biggest one is that it's going to be a much smoother and a much longer coasting ride. So if you're skating for distance, or if you want to skate from point A to point B, the bigger the wheel, the longer you'll be able to coast. Let me give you an example. So if you've got small wheels and you're on aggressive, and you skate as fast as you can, the top speed might be the same. So you could skate really fast like you're running or something like that and skate really fast, or skating down a ramp or something. But then because the wheels are so small, you're going to slow down much faster. With these big wheels, same top speed, you will coast longer because the wheel is so much bigger. It's moving faster. It's going faster. You're not going to be able to stop as quickly. The first time that I put on big wheels, I put on some 110s, and I had a hard time stopping. I kept running into the grass because I just didn't know that it was going to stop. I was expecting myself to, slow down by myself. But with the big wheels, they kind of coast and they don't stop. So hundreds are probably the smallest of the big wheels that I've skated. They're not the biggest though. So aside from hundreds, you can get these 110s. Where are my 110s? So these are some 110 millimeter Powerslide spinners. I think they're spinners. Powerslide Infinity. So these are 110s, hundreds, 110s. Um, the 110s are probably the most standard size that you'll find in a tri-skate. So if you were looking at a Powerslide Imperial, Powerslide Kazi, Powerslide Swell, or any of the Rollerblade 3x, I think they're the twisters. If you're looking at any of the K2 skates, you'll see the 110 millimeter wheel as kind of their standard. And there's a good reason for that. It's bigger than the 100, so you're going to have a much bigger coast distance than a 100 millimeter wheel. If you put 3 of them under your foot, you get a nice even balance. So tri-skates typically have 3 wheels, where rollerblade, like normal inline skates, have 4 wheels. With a tri-skate, if you put 3 110 mil wheels, you're at around 240 to 250 millimeters from 1 to 4, and that is a perfect length for what somebody would normally have as their wheelbase. I actually have a frame set up. So this is a Kaiser Trimax with 110 millimeter rollerblade hydrogen wheels, and this is a boot. This is just a Valo aggressive boot. If you put the frame on the skate, you can see the distance and the amount of wheel that sticks out from the outside of the boots is minimal, and that's a good thing. So you've got a really similar ride length, to a 4x80 frame, which traditionally was the standard for recreational. I think I actually have a 4x80. Let me find that one. All right, so here's a 4x80. This is a Kaiser Aero. There's 80 millimeter wheels, 4 of them. This is 243 millimeters from 1 to 4. This is the Kaiser Aero, or Kaiser Trimax, 3x110, and it's about the same, 250 millimeters, I think, from 1 to 3. If you put them together, you can see they're almost exactly the same wheelbase. So the area that the wheel touches, the first wheel and the last wheel, it's pretty much the same. This is the good illustration of why you would want to tri-skate. You're able to skate bigger wheels, but have the same wheelbase. So you won't feel any different when you're skating. It'll still feel like a normal skate. It won't be this long skate. Now, they didn't stop at 110. 110 is probably the most popular big wheel size, but they also make a 125. I have a pair of 125 Swells. So these are the Powerslide Swell road skates. They are a Trinity mount 3x125 frame, and these things are fast. They're really fast. So 125 is a big wheel compared to the 100. I mean, this is a big difference. Even with having the 3 wheels, they still extend past the front of the boot, and this is a size 10.5 boot. So you're going to have a long wheelbase with this. I think this is 250 millimeters from 1 to 3. But bigger the wheel, the more coasting you're going to get. So with these are my trails skates. So when I go skating distances, 5 to 10 miles at a time, I skate these skates because when I push, I just coast and I just float down the trail, and it is an amazing feeling. I'm able to skate much longer with these than I was with my 110s, and definitely further than I was with a 4x80. And the reason is that these wheels let me just skate further. You just float. What would I recommend for what discipline? So the 125s definitely are the biggest wheels that I would ever recommend. I know they make a 150 for like off-roading. I don't know anything about that. I haven't gotten any of those frames. I haven't tried any of those frames. So I'm not going to consider those. So I'm going to say that the biggest wheel that we'll talk about is the 125. The 125 is great for long distance. And I think that is what it's designed to do. If you are skating long distance in a straight line, you want to get a 125. I think that that is a great length, great size of wheel for you. The exception is, if you have a smaller foot, maybe you want to get a 110 because you want that shorter wheelbase. Totally understandable. I think 110 is a good compromise. 125 is where I want to be. I have a size 10 and a half foot, and I feel like that is the perfect balance for me. If you're just skating around town, if you wanted to do an urban setup, if you wanted to, skate from point A to point B, or just skate around your city, I think the 110s are the way to go. I think 110s are a really great compromise. They are a shorter wheelbase, especially if you have smaller feet. Shorter wheelbase, so they'll feel really good under your foot. They are still big enough that you'll get a good coast, but they're nimble and low enough that you won't feel like you're on platform shoes. I really love the 110s, and I think the 110 three-wheel frames are probably the best setup that I've had for cruising the city. It's a good balance of height and speed. The other would be the hundreds. So if you're looking at hundreds, you're probably looking at something like the Wizard NR100. This is a 4x100 frame. K2 also makes a 4x100 frame. Powerslide makes a 3-wheel 100 frame for slalom and for smaller feet. I think that 4x100 might be a little long for most people. I think it's an amazing feeling. You've got that 4-wheel feeling versus the 3-wheel. There's something to be said about having 4 wheels. You can get a little different rocker. You can get a little different carving and turning and such. It is a great feeling having 4 wheels under your feet at this size, but I don't think it's for everyone. I think that the 4x100 is kind of a niche thing. I think if you're trying to get 4 wheels under your feet, 80 is probably the right size, maybe 84, maybe 90, but I haven't skated any 4x90s. I don't know that there are any 4x90s that I can skate. I think 4x100 might be a little big. And, obviously the reason is I'm a size 10 and the wheels are sticking out from the front and back. These aren't designed for distance. These aren't designed for trails. They're designed for skating around town, for having fun, doing tricks on your feet, different carves and turns and such. Maybe skating the skate park and skating fast and doing big airs. And they're great for that. That's a very niche thing, though. So I hope that answered your question. Hundreds are a pretty weird size, I think. Until somebody comes out with a good wheelbase 100 tri-skate frame, I'm not really sure what they're good for. I love the 110s, and I think the 110 is the right size for a tri-skate for most people. Oh, and Kathy, you also asked about the